word to wise. Grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today's video, we're gonna be talking about Way of X number 5 by Cy Spurrier and Bob Quinn. And in this video, we are going to learn exactly how far Nightcrawler is willing to go to make two mutants get past their differences and forgive one another. And more importantly, we're also gonna learn exactly how Onslaught has been amassing all this power of Krakoa behind the scenes and how it allowed him to return to life despite the fact that we live in this utopian era of mutantdom. And we're also going to learn exactly how Charles Xavier feels about Legion being on the island. We're going to talk about all this and more right now. But first, if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoy the video, I humbly ask that you Hulk smash that like button because it really helps the channel out. All that aside, let's talk about Way of X number 5. When last we left off with Way of X, the characters of Lost and Fabian Cortez were trying to kill one another. And while they were doing this, Nightcrawler has been trying to find a way to make them see the reason, to make them understand that they need to let this go, that they need to forgive one another, and that while they both have, well, at least one of them has a good enough reason to hate the other, they do need to find some kind of way to get past this because there's no way that Krakoa can go forward if every mutant is gonna hold on to old grudges, regardless of how strong the reasoning behind it. Nightcrawler does the only thing that he can think of to make them see to reason, and it is to put them in a stressful situation. Basically, what he's done is that he teleports both Fabian Cortez and Lost 10 kilometers above Mars, basically allowing them to fall to their death at terminal velocity. The reason why he's doing this is because, well, Nightcrawler, he could teleport at any moment that he chooses and completely save himself. He could even save either of them if he chose to, but he's gonna leave it all up to chance because Lost has the ability to save Fabian Cortez. But we also know that Lost has very good reason for not wanting to help Fabian Cortez. He killed her parents and caused her to live a life less than spectacular. Fabian Cortez is also a proud mutant. He's not going to ask anyone for anything. He never has and he never will. Well, maybe. Even aside from all that, that is the rub. Will Fabian Cortez actually ask for forgiveness so that Lost would be more willing to save his life? Not only can Marinette save both herself and Fabian Cortez from this fall, but Fabian Cortez is actually holding back Marinette's abilities, using his own power to, for all intents and purposes, keep Marinette from using hers. So it's kind of a give and take. They both have to forgive one another because if they don't, neither one of them will be able to help the other because they're actively working against one another. And that's kind of where all this comes into play, with the emotions that come with vengeance and wanting to harm others who have harmed you, to get back at those who have done incredible wrong to you. And while Fabian Cortez believes that life is cheap and that it doesn't matter if either one of them die, fine, let them die. If we die, we'll just come back resurrected. This is where Nightcrawler actually intervenes and says something, and it has technically come up in other portions of Way of X, but I don't think Nightcrawler has said it more eloquently now than he has ever before. It is the fact that life is not cheap. The very thing he's been trying to get other people to understand is that life, yes, we could resurrect, we can come back anytime we want, and we can even not have those painful memories of what has killed us to traumatize us even further. We are literally immortal. We can do whatever we want. Death doesn't matter, but that doesn't mean that life doesn't. And what he's trying to get them to understand is that, yes, while he is considered the nice guy on the island, he is a member of the Quiet Council. What they need to understand is that he does actually have some bearing on whether or not either one of them gets to come back. They need to understand now more than ever that life is not cheap and that they shouldn't just expect to die and then immediately come back like nothing ever happened. Their problems won't go away, and they need to stop treating everything like it's so meaningless. The third law of mutant kind is to respect this sacred land. That doesn't just mean Krakoa. That doesn't just mean the patch of dirt that they happen to be standing on at the moment. What Nightcrawler is referring to is also respecting their brothers and sisters and others on the island. Any harm against another mutant is technically a harm against the sacred land and breaking of that law. And if they continue to act in this way, to continue with this behavior, Nightcrawler says he will make sure that they never get resurrected, that their names are always and forever at the back of the resurrection queue. This actually does get through to Fabian Cortez, which is interesting considering how hard Nightcrawler tried in the previous issue, trying to get Fabian to see the reason, to understand that life isn't cheap and that life is not meaningless, that death doesn't matter. Fabian actually begins to understand it now. And as he begins to understand it, he actually begins to not necessarily apologize, but definitely he's getting in that direction, that he admits that he's twisted up. He knows that he needs help. He knows that something's wrong with him. And while Lost begins to reconcile the fact that you killed my parents and it led to me being taken in by this shady organization that experimented on her, all of this is coming together. They're making these huge, incredible breakthroughs, only for Onslaught to step in the way. Onslaught doesn't want this. He doesn't thrive on harmony, he thrives on discord. He doesn't want them forgiving one another, and more importantly, he knows what Fabian Cortez is able to do. There's a reason that Nightcrawler has stayed out of Fabian Cortez's reach for the most part. The whole reason why is because he didn't want Fabian Cortez attempting to overload Nightcrawler's powers or shut them off, which is actually what he was doing to Lost. And now what Onslaught is going to do is he's going to force Fabian Cortez to overload Lost and kill her. Now, the problem with this is that as they're falling, he magnifies her ability so much, her ability to warp and manipulate the gravitational pull in her area, he increases it to the point it affects Phobos, one of the moons of Mars, causing Phobos to go on a crash course with Mars itself, which is kind of interesting when you consider the fact that Phobos crashing onto the surface of Mars is incredibly misfortunate, because not only is it going to kill a lot of people, but it's also going to destroy the first mutant planet and what is considered to be the literal capital of the Sol system within days of it even being created. How do you fix that problem? What mutant has the ability to fix this? Well, technically, you could have asked Manifold, but they're in a pinch right now. All of that aside, Nightcrawler finally gets it. And the reason why he's actually starting to understand what's going on here is that he's starting to recognize what Onslaught is really doing. This actually makes us flip back to Legion. You see, Legion has been basically building something as of the previous issue. Initially, what he was trying to build was a temple. This has all been in his way to kind of help Nightcrawler with the creating of a mutant religion on Krakoa. And while he's doing this, he is actually being talked to by Charles Xavier, who's been recently resurrected. Charles was killed by Legion, as well as 63 some odd other mutants who were also at the Green Lagoon when Legion basically decided to wipe the slate clean, realizing that Onslaught was already buried deep down into Xavier's psyche. What's actually happened here is that Onslaught has been infecting the other mutants through the resurrection protocols. We kind of posited this in the previous issue and maybe even the issue before that, that's where all this is happening. It's happening when any mutant is resurrected, they're brought back by Charles Xavier. And since Onslaught is already in Charles Xavier's psyche, a piece of Onslaught is getting into them. But it goes a little bit deeper than that, and it kind of makes me wonder exactly how deep this actually goes, because since Charles is dead, he's resurrected by Emma Frost, while a lot of the other mutants are being worked on by Exodus and Jean Grey. It does make one wonder, because as they're all waking up, they're all coming back with a very particular idea. They're all coming back with a certain idea in mind, something that Pixie says out loud, refers to it as the Crucible, which sounds eerily like the Crucible. And if we have the Crucible to judge by this, I can't help but feel like this is a giant party where everyone's killing each other. I don't know how that's gonna play out. But point of the matter is, this is what causes Charles Xavier to approach Legion on Mars, and while Legion is more caught up in other matters, we don't really get to see everything that Charles says to Legion, because Legion isn't paying attention, and the Zorn brothers don't care to actually help Legion understand or wake him up, or even allow Charles Xavier to understand or know exactly what it is that Legion is doing. All of that aside, Legion in this moment has discovered exactly what it is. When a mutant dies, Onslaught is feasting on the moments that the mutants don't remember, the moment between the mutants' death and the time of their resurrection. The things that mutants don't recollect or know about when they die has become food and nourishment for Onslaught. That is what is making him incredibly powerful. Onslaught has basically been thriving on this, and more importantly, while Xavier has been sitting there speaking with Legion, and Legion, well, for the most part, has not really listened to much of what Xavier has to say, he basically has caught some of the bullet points. The fact that Charles thinks that Legion is too dangerous for this island and feels that he shouldn't be on Krakoa, and more importantly, that if he were to die in this moment where Phobos is crashing to the moon, or if he should ever die for that matter, he will not be resurrected again. And Legion, while he may or may not understand why Charles feels this way, Legion does understand that he is not a good person in terms of being good with other people. He doesn't understand how other people work, and he even talks about how he treats people like things, and that he doesn't understand why people are the way they are, and when he treats people or mistreats people in a certain way, he acts surprised when they break because he doesn't understand how they actually work. These are all things he says while he has tears coming out of his eyes, and it's very plain to see that Xavier's frustrated with Legion. Legion is frustrated with Xavier. They're both frustrated with each other, and Legion, more importantly, is frustrated with himself. Legion honestly probably hates the way he is, and he knows that he's the way he is because of his father. Because his father does kind of have a lot of the same problems as he does. But the point is that his father has Onslaught within him, and with that in him, it only enables Onslaught. So how do you stop the problem? How do we stop Onslaught when Onslaught is so embedded in the very nature of Krakoa itself now? Well, that part, we don't really know how they're gonna fix the problem, because first and foremost, they have to stop Phobos from falling into Mars and destroying everything. Well, it just so happens at this moment, now that Fabian Cortez has accidentally killed the character Lost, he actually is incredibly repentant about the whole thing. He realizes that they are going to die, and he now realizes, because of Nightcrawler, the only way they're going to be able to save everybody is if Fabian overloads Nightcrawler's abilities. Something that Fabian realizes that it probably won't work. And even if it does work, who's to say he won't be blamed for the death of Nightcrawler? Everyone is going to hate him, and all he wants is that he wants for people to think that he's important and to like him. And the reason why no one likes him is because he hates himself so much. Fabian Cortez is full of so much self-loathing that even if people wanted to like him, he would never give them the chance to, that he's always gonna self-sabotage, and that he's always gonna hold himself down more than anyone else will. This is something that actually, I think, even reaches Fabian Cortez's cold, dead heart more than anything Nightcrawler has even said up to this point, because when he finally relents and does what Nightcrawler asked him to do, he quietly says the very same thing that Nightcrawler tried to make him understand before: respect this sacred land. Overloading Nightcrawler's powers, this is something incredibly dangerous that Fabian Cortez has always been able to do. Overloading a mutant's powers will burn them out, the same way he burned out Lost just a few pages ago. And when he does so, it starts making Nightcrawler understand. Nightcrawler realizes exactly how to defeat Onslaught. He sees it all. And even though technically he doesn't say it out loud, we see it in his visions. Selfless acts, trying to help others, coming together, joining in harmony with one another is going to be the way forward. Look at some of the moments here. We have to remember that in that moment when Nightcrawler's holding that gun up to Legion's brain, he's doing something incredibly selfless, going against his own religion, his own religious beliefs about suicide and murder to save someone else's life, regardless of how that actually affects his own sensibilities. We have to remember what Pixie tried to do to help influence Lost and try and help her calm down from her rage, seeing Dazzler and Dr. Nemesis, who for all intents and purposes throughout the course of Way of X has done nothing but talk about how much he despises Dazzler. But in the moment where Stacy X kind of gives him that little push to make him, seek out what was already there, his deepest feelings that were really there behind all that hatred, that it brought him and Dazzler together. Even at a moment when Nightcrawler was trying to protect Gorgon, and he ultimately kind of humiliated himself in front of a bunch of humans in order to take the heat off of Gorgon. All of that is the way. Self-sacrifice, being selfless, doing for others without care for what you're gonna get back in return. That is how you defeat Onslaught. And more importantly, That is the mutant religion. That is the way of X. Nightcrawler does everything that he needs to do. He's going to perform what is, for all intents and purposes, the next big selfless act. He's going to teleport Fabian Cortez away from harm and teleport him back to Krakoa, and then use this newfound overloaded power of his to teleport to Phobos and teleport it back into position. All the while leaving Fabian Cortez with a very specific message that when he dies and he's resurrected, he's not going to remember anything about how they win, how he's going to learn about how to create the mutant religion, how he's going to figure out how to defeat Onslaught. He's not going to remember any of this. And we witness this once again as Nightcrawler selflessly sacrificed himself in House of X number 4, teleporting Wolverine closer to the sun so that they could stop Mother Mold once and for all. Nightcrawler's doing something very similar yet again as he's repeatedly teleporting Phobos further and further and further and further away, to the point that Phobos is returned back to its rightful place. And as he does so, Nightcrawler's body is literally riddled and burns, and he dies out there alone in space on the surface of Phobos. All the while with this reminder in Fabian Cortez's head that he just needs to tell him one word. That's all he needs to say to Nightcrawler to get him to remember everything, that he'll put the rest together. He just needs to remember the word spark. Tell Nightcrawler about the spark and it will all come back to him. And then he is going to figure out exactly what they need to do to get everything done. The unseen spark in all things is the way forward. This is something that's actually alluded to earlier in this book. The Book of the Spark, there's an excerpt from it where we see earlier in this where this whole talk of sacred land keeps coming back up. We know that Nightcrawler is going to find these words again. All in all, this is the words of Nightcrawler having apparently refounded, spoiler alert for the future, but yeah, he's going to rediscover these words. That is what Nightcrawler has been trying to find this entire time. He finally found it, only he found it too late. Nightcrawler does in fact get resurrected. He does in fact learn that he sacrificed himself to save everyone, to save the world, to save Mars, to basically be the hero that everyone has always known Nightcrawler to be, to do the thing no one else has the guts to do. Unfortunately, however, Fabian Cortez can't tell him the word he needs to hear. Because when Nightcrawler asked for Fabian Cortez, we learn that somewhere between the time that when Nightcrawler teleported Phobos back into position, Fabian Cortez was rendered catatonic. It seems like he's had some kind of a stroke of some sort, and right now, no one can think of anything to save him. It's Healer who actually posits that the only way to actually help him is to kill him, euthanize him, and then bring him back. However, Charles Xavier feels like Fabian Cortez is nothing but a problem. It is, in fact, Fabian's fault that Lost was overloaded and ended up pulling Phobos down in the first place. Albeit the whole thing with Lost technically isn't his fault, that was actually Onslaught's manipulations. However, still he has done other things that have hurt other mutants, and he is considered wildly untrustworthy. It has actually led Xavier to become a bit colder about mutant resurrection, feeling that maybe mutants who act in this way don't deserve resurrection. Charles Xavier basically says that you can't save them all, as Onslaught looms over not only himself, but everyone else on the island around them. Onslaught has literally sank his hooks into everybody through resurrection. Anyone who's died, he's now been able to manipulate, proving that mutant death has a cost that no one predicted. As far as I'm aware, this marks the end of Way of X. It seems like this story is going to be continued in the issue X-Men The Onslaught Revelation. This is basically kind of letting us know that this will probably be the first official reveal of Onslaught to everybody as a whole. Maybe they'll actually finally figure out how to stop Onslaught, but for as far as I'm aware, Way of X is not going to continue past this, or if it does, it won't be for much longer. I have seen some rumorings around that it was technically meant to be a limited series of some sort. I think I've even seen Cy Spurrier say as much that it wasn't going to go much further past 5 if it did at all, and that the Onslaught Revelation will very likely be the end of all of this. Either way, whatever it is that actually comes out of this, Onslaught is back. He is badder than ever, and right now, even though the tools to save Krakoa from Onslaught were literally at the forefront of Nightcrawler's mind in his death, in his resurrection, it's now gone. But anyways, If you enjoyed this video, Hulk smash that like button and make sure to share this video all over the internet and with all your friends so they'll know how you leveled up your comic book big brain with the X-Men comic Way of X. On your way out, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know what you thought about Way of X number 5 and the return of Onslaught. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.